Our lesson for this week is planning and organizing work. Okay, so for this week lesson, uh, basically, this module, this PowerPoint presentation focuses or discusses the knowledge, skills, and attitude required to plan and organize work in a company. So, yung mga previous na lesson, the first lesson is all about utilizing specialized communication skills. So, ibig sabihin, ano ba yung mga communication tactics na kailangan alam nyo or ano ba yung mga kailangan na skill na kailangan for you to be able to communicate effectively. No, last week, yung second lesson is all about developing individual and team growth. Okay, so ano ba yung mga makakapag enhance no ng ng professional or career growth or even personal, okay, ng individual or ng isang organization or ng isang team. Okay? So for this week, our lesson is all about planning and organizing a task, a project, or uh, an activity. So as you go along with your uh, um, studies and then nag-apply kayo for work, okay? So involved na kayo or kayo ay na-hire sa isang organization or sa isang company, okay? Definitely may mga task, may mga project, may mga activities na kailangan yung gawin, okay? So etong lesson na to will help you acquire or at least have an idea ano ba yung mga skills, ano yung mga kailangan na knowledge or attitude na kailangan, okay, para you know how to plan and organize an activity, a task, or a project. So we have the first objective is number one, identify work objectives. Okay, number two, plan and schedule work activities using different tools. Number three, conduct and monitor plans or activities. And number four, evaluate work plans and activities. Now, basically, ito yung mga objectives for today or for this week's lesson. Okay? Okay, so now this lesson or this module discusses the planning and communication process needed to set work objectives. Paano ba tayo um, uh, paano ba natin ma-identify or mag-set ng objective sa isang task or sa isang activity or sa isang project? Organizational aims. Ano ba yung tinatawag nating objectives or um, purpose ng isang organization sa isang project or sa isang activities or sa isang task or sa isang work? And effective workload distribution as well as using the SWOT analysis technique. Pag sinabi nating effective workload distribution, it means equally, okay, na-assign mo yung task, responsibilities, roles sa lahat ng members ng isang project or ng isang activity. Okay? So, and also, I will also discuss kung ano yung tinatawag nating SWOT analysis technique. Pag sinabi nating SWOT analysis, SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, ginagamit to class para maging aware ang isang organization kung ano yung kanyang magiging actions, decisions, or ano yung magiging basihan ng kanyang decision making. Okay? So basically, ito yung topic for this lesson. Okay? Okay, organizational policies and procedures. Now, lahat ng organizations, companies have policies and procedures. Pag sinabi natin class na policies, it refers to a guidelines or a rule. Okay? So sabi nga dito, organizational policies and procedures are the outline of rules and guidelines of decision making to deal with problems. Okay? Para pag may na-encounter silang situation, unexpected situation, alam nila kung paano to i-handle. Okay? That's why we have policies. Example, school policies. School policies on what? Attendance, grading system. So mga ganun. Okay? That's an example. So same din sa ibang organization, same din sa ibang companies. Meron silang organizational policies. Depende kung ano yung nature ng kanilang company. Okay? So these policies and procedures make employees understand the organization goals and values on specific issues and are implemented across the organization. So dapat alam, aware yung lahat ng members, yung empleyado, yung staff, even the management ng policy. Okay? Para mas maging smooth yung kanilang operations ng kanilang business or ng kanilang company. So anong pagkakaiba ng policy sa procedure? Pag sinabi nating policies, okay, These are guidelines and statements of principles on how an organization should go about its dealings and operations. Okay? So that's why sabi ko kanina, example ko is policy on grading system. So dapat naka-letter grade ba siya? Ang passing ba is 75? Okay? So those are examples of policies or rules. Okay? So basically, it is an statement of principles. Okay? Pero pag sinabi nating procedure, ito naman yung um, detailed instruction on how employees should carry out the company's policies. So ibig sabihin ng procedure, how the companies implement, okay, the policies. So kumbaga, policies ay what? Ano siya? Because it is a statement. Pero pag sinabi natin procedure, it is how. Okay? So that's the difference between policies and procedures. And also, pag sinabi natin procedure, it is a step by step. Okay? Step by step siya. Okay? May proseso siya. Okay? So that's organizational policies and procedures. Kagaya ng example is policy on enrollment. So ano ba yung mga dapat? Dapat complete ang requirements, dapat may picture, that's policy, no? Policy yan. Para ikaw ay ma-admit, admission ng isang student. Pero pag sinabi natin procedure, ano yung step by step ng enrollment? So first is, pupunta ka sa admission, you will submit the requirements. So that's the difference between policies and procedure. Okay? Okay, planning process. Okay. Um, Planning self-class is a function of management. That's why it's very critical na dapat yung mga nasa top management or yung manager know how to plan, know how to kumbaga draft kung ano bang dapat gawin, okay? Sa isang activities or sa isang task, okay? So, planning is a function of management. That's why it is a requirement na dapat ang isang manager know how to plan. Kaya nga sabi dito, failure to plan is planning to fail. Okay? Planning for failure. Parang ganun. So, kung hindi ka wala kang plano, definitely, anong mangyari? Pag ginawa mo ang isang activity or isang event or isang project, pwedeng mag-fail siya. Okay? So the planning process includes in developing budgets, accompany guides for future activities. Okay? So ginagawa din class yung planning for take note na hindi naman pwede na meron kang activity, wala kang budget. So all activities, projects, tasks requires budget. So para mas may ma-determine kung ano ba yung mga dapat gawin in the future. Okay? So documents and planning process may include long-range strategic plans, short-term tactical plans, operational plans, project plans. Now, etong mga to, iba-iba sila class. Okay? Pag sinabi natin long-range strategic plans, from the word long-range, usually ito yung mga plans that requires longer period of time. Say for example, ang strategic plan is a 10-year plan, 10-year strategic plan, or 20-year strategic plan. And usually, ang gumagawa nito ng strategic plans ay yung mga nasa top management. Kagaya ng the CEO, the president, yan. Pero pag sinabi natin short-term tactical plans, it can be or ang gumagawa naman itong mga plans na to ay yung mga nasa low level. Okay? And we also have the operational plans. Okay? Ang gumagawa nito is the middle managers. So usually, operational plans include the operating activities needed for a certain project or certain activities. Okay? Kumbaga, paano ba gagawin ng isang department ang isang kanilang activities or ang kanilang task. Okay? Project plans, ito naman ay depende, no? Based siya sa project ng isang department or ng isang say section ng isang company. Okay? Pag sinabi natin project, usually 6 months. Okay? Pwedeng 1 year. Depende sa complexities ng isang project. So, these are examples ng plans. Depende kung anong level ng management meron ka. Or kung anong level ng management siya. Okay? So, yan. Okay, so we have here general steps for planning process. Okay. Now, these are the generally accepted steps, okay, that provides or which provides acceptable results. Okay, ibig sabihin okay yung kanyang output pag sinunod nyo tong steps na to. The first one is identify objective. So, kailangan ma-identify nyo para saan ba yung project, para saan ba yung activities, um, ano yung purpose ng activities basically. That's the first objective, ay the first task or the first step in planning. Okay? You should be able to identify the objectives. Okay? The second one is determine tasks to meet the objectives. So you have the project or the event. Okay? Ano yung mga task? Dapat alam yun kasi paano nyo i-execute yung plan, paano nyo i-execute yung activities or yung project. Okay? So, number 3, list down resources needed for task implementation. Pag sinabi nating resources, we have, okay, number 1, manpower or sino ba yung mga gagawa. Okay, manpower is a resources. Okay. Number 2, budget. Kailangan to sa pag-execute ng isang activities, ng isang project, or ng isang work, or ng isang task. Okay? That's a resources. Budget. Number 3, another example of resources ay yung mga equipments na gagamitin. Okay? Kailangan ba ng projector? Kailangan ba ng printer? Kailangan ba ng computer? Okay? Kailangan ba ng ink? Kailangan ba ng bond paper? So you should be able to determine ano yung resources. Okay? So these are examples of resources. So you should be able to identify. Okay? And number 4, develop a timeline. Gaano katagal yung project? Gaano katagal yung activities? Ito ba ay aabutin ng 2 days, 3 days, or 1 day lang? Okay? So, and dun sa timeline na yon, say for example, 5 days, you should be able to allocate, say for example, etong task na to gagawin natin sa first day, etong task na to gagawin natin ng second day, etong uh, task na tong dalawa, pwede natin gawin sa third and fourth day. Parang ganun. Okay? So you have to develop a timeline para alam nyo kung kailan matatapos yung project or yung task or yung activity. Now, take note, bakit kailangan ng timeline? Para alam nyo na, kasi pag wala kayong timeline, ibig sabihin, pwede siyang matapos 6 years, 7 years, yan. So you have to include a timeline kasi habang tumatagal ang isang project, ang isang activity, okay, ang isang task, it requires budget. So, baka malugi yung company pag wala kayong time frame. Okay? One good example nito, class, ay yung pag-develop ng isang building. Yan. Di ba, usually pag nakakita tayo ng building, meron dyan nakalagay building permit and then nakalagay dun yung start and end ng project. Okay? Kasi, kung imagine nyo, class, kung kayo ay papagaw ng isang building, tapos wala kayong time frame. Paano kung yung trabahador mo ay maging ano lang, slack lang sila? Kasi wala namang time frame eh. So parang forever yung project. Hindi naman pwede. Kasi habang tumatagal, it incurs cost. Bakit? Siyempre magpapasahod ka, yung materials, yan. So you have to consider yan. Okay? So you have to develop a timeline or a time frame kung kailan matatapos, kung kailan mag-end, at yung duration ng project. Okay? And number 5 is create a tracking and evaluation method. Pag sinabi nating tracking, okay, you have a time frame ng activities. Dapat ikaw din mayroon kang tracking kung eto bang project na to or etong activities na to ay natapos on time or hindi. Okay? You have to assess, no? Kung lahat ba ng activities ay based doon sa schedule na susunod. Okay? So you have to create a tracking and evaluation. Kasi dito, sa tracking and evaluation, makikita nyo kung una, may backlogs ba, may achievement ba yung project, or kumbaga may progress ba yung project, and at the same time, kung yung empleyado nyo ba ay nagpe-perform ng maayos o hindi. That's why we have a tracking and evaluation method. Importante siya. So dapat merong feedback, okay, dun sa leader ng project na may progress. Okay? And then you have to finalize the plan. Okay? So after mong magawa ma-set mo yung objectives, ma-identify yung task, ma-identify yung resources, makapagawa ka ng, you put it in a timeline, and then meron kang tracking, okay? You can now finalize the plan. And after finalizing the plan, you have to disseminate the plan dun sa mga taong involved or department na involved. Okay? Lahat ng members, okay, ng organization na kailangan dun para ma-implement yung project ay kailangan aware sila. Okay? Example, take note na dun sa pag-implement nyo ng plan, kailangan nyo ng budget. So, dapat aware si accounting. Okay? aware si production or si marketing para ma-market or ma-promote yung inyong activities or yung inyong events. Okay? So these are examples or these are steps in the general steps in planning. So mas maganda na pag ganito ang ginagawa nyo, pag kayo ay nagpa-plan ng isang activity, ng isang event, o ng isang project. Para clear, smooth yung pag-execute once na tapos na yung plan and you're going to execute or implement the plan, okay, mas smooth siya. Okay? Kasi alam nyo kung sino yung taong accountable, sino yung taong responsible, kailan yung deadline, okay? So, mas madali, mas magiging, kumbaga, productive din yung mga tao kasi aware sila ng plan. Okay? Okay, communication process. Okay. So, communication is very critical, no? Sabi nga dito, communication process in planning and organizing work is critical. That's why baga mayroong mga project or event na hindi nagiging successful because one of the reason is hindi aware yung mga tao. Hindi alam na pag eto ang nangyari, ano nang susunod. So most probably, hindi na properly disseminated yung information. Okay? So, it is critical in planning and organizing. Dapat aware yung lahat ng tao. Okay? So, to ensure that the scope, budget, schedule, and quality are regularly monitored and the plan is followed, communication must be taken into consideration. So, hindi nagtatapos yung project or planning ng project sa plan itself. You have to communicate, you have to ask a feedback or suggestion. Okay? So meron ditong table or a matrix, no? So the first column is the communication. Anong klaseng communication siya? Ano yung purpose ng communication? Ano yung instrument na ginamit? And at the same time, yung frequency, gaano kadalas dapat makipag-communicate. Yun yung frequency. Okay? So the first one is a weekly project or a progress report. Okay? So, ang purpose ng progress report is keep the responsible person informed on the status. Importante to. So, kung merong project, kung meron kang if you are involved in a project, definitely hihingan ka ng boss mo or ng manager mo ng progress report. Okay? Pwedeng through what? Pwedeng through printed, pwedeng through a soft copy. And usually, okay, yung progress report ay weekly. Ibig sabihin, at the end of, say for example, Friday, okay, you have to submit your progress report para alam ng lahat yung status ng project. Kung may improvement ba or may backlogs ba. Another example of communication is announcements. Okay, para saan yung announcements? Yung announcement ay para ma-inform lahat ng staff ng changes or progress ng plan. So, kailangan ganun. Hindi yung parang tapos na yung plan, kailangan ng execute, pero wala man lang na, okay, tapos na kami dito sa part na to, eto ay hindi pa tapos, eto yung backlog. So, dapat aware lahat. Okay? So, pwedeng through what? Through an email, pwedeng through an SMS. Okay? And, ang pwedeng frequency niya ay twice a week or depende sa urgency. Kasi pwedeng per day, okay? Pwedeng thrice a week. Or pwedeng pag may urgent na kailangan maging aware lahat ng members ng group or team is kailangan within the day mag-submit ka ng announcement. Kung may mga changes, mga unforeseen events, no? So yan. Gantt chart. Okay, Gantt chart is a tool, no? It's actually a table. Now, as we go along with the slides, malalaman niyo kung anong itsura ng Gantt chart. Now, para saan yung Gantt chart? It keeps everyone aware of the schedule for proper time management. So, as I mentioned kanina, okay, meron kang kailangan mag-develop ka ng timeline. Okay? Wherein, isa-set mo yung lahat ng activities with a start and date. Okay? So, yung Gantt chart, para maging aware ang lahat ng schedule ng kanilang mga activities or ng kanilang mga events or tasks. Okay? Para aware sila na, okay, dapat sa ganitong araw tapos na to. Okay? Okay, this can be done through email or Gantt chart itself. Okay? Parang ipakita mo lang or send mo lang sa staff mo or sa members ng group yung Gantt chart. And ito ay pwedeng weekly. Okay? And another one is survey. Okay? That's how we communicate with our staff or our customers or users. Okay? So para saan yung survey? Get feedback from target users or customers. Okay? Pwedeng through what? A printed survey questionnaire. One good example nito class ng survey is restaurant, say for example, Max's, okay? Pag kumain kayo sa Max's or kahit sa Jolly, sa Chowking, okay? Sometimes, okay, may papasagutan silang parang survey wherein ang tanong dun is, kumusta ba yung food? You have to rate their food. Excellent ba? Yung environment nila, malinis ba? Yung staff ba nila is approachable? Yan. That's actually getting a feedback or a comment or suggestion sa kanilang users or sa kanilang customers. And usually, yan ay once per respondent. Pag sinabi nating respondent, sila yung sasagot dun sa survey. Okay? Isang beses lang kasi para na, hindi naman pwedeng dalawa, pero pareho lang yung sagot. So redundant siya. Okay? That's why it's once per respondent. So these are examples of a communication tactics, no? Or ways to communicate with your colleagues or your co-employees or staff. Okay? Through this, no? Pwedeng progress report, pwedeng announcement, pwedeng Gantt chart, or a survey. Okay, organizational aims. Now, organizational aims are the result desired by the organization. Why do an organization exist? Because meron silang purpose. Kasi parang kung wala kang purpose, wala kang objectives, wala kang goals, why a certain organization exists? Okay? Kaya nga sabi dito, results desired by the organization. Okay? So dapat lahat ng organization, merong organizational aims. Now, the aims are specifically identified and follow a set of requirements. Paano ba to ginagawa? Paano ba inaano yung aims ng isang organization? So, ito daw siya. First one is hierarchy. Ibig sabihin, there must be order of priority or importance of the organizational aims. Kasi pwedeng marami silang objectives na nilagay. Parang organizational objectives. Marami sila. So, dapat may prioritization. Okay? Consistency, okay, dapat aligned siya doon sa gustong mangyari or doon sa mission or vision ng isang organization. So sabi dito, the organizational aims should be aligned so that the effort required to accomplish one will not produce conflict with the others. So dapat, di ba lahat ng organization merong mission and vision. So dapat yung kanilang organizational aims or objectives naka-align doon sa mission or vision nila. Consistent siya doon. Okay? So measurability, dapat siya ay this refers to the ability to identify whether the aims are accomplished or not, and if they are quantified and valued or not. Okay? It can be measurable. It can be accomplished or not. Parang dapat pag nag-set ka ng organizational aims, siya ay achievable. It can be accomplished. Okay? So yan. And timing. So there should be a timeline or deadline for the accomplishment of the organizational aims. So say for example, yung kanilang organizational aims is for 5 years or 10 years or by 2025, dapat ma-achieve nila to. Okay? So that's an example of timing. So you have a time frame. Realistic and challenging. The organizational aims specified should be feasible to accomplish, but should be ambitious to motivate the employees. Okay? Ano bang example? Say for example, simple example lang ng organizational aims. Okay, dapat at the end of, say for example, ikaw ay may-ari ng isang milk tea. Yan, okay? Ngayon, yung isa sa mga organizational aims nyo is dapat to sell 1,000 milk tea for, say for example, for 1 month. Okay? So sabihin natin for 1 month. So ibig sabihin, kung for 1 month, kailangan mong makabenta ng 1,000 na milk tea, you have to divide it into 30 days or 31 days. Kasi meron naman tayong 30 days in 1 month, di ba? So, assume natin na say for example, para makabenta ka ng 1,000, pwedeng, ilan ba? Say for example, 10 milk tea in a day. Okay. Para ma-achieve mo, yung dapat makabenta ka for this month na 1,000 na milk tea. So kung ikaw yung staff, kung ikaw yung empleyado, achievable ba yung 10 milk tea in a day? Or sabihin natin 100 na milk tea in a day or sabihin natin 20 milk tea in a day. Okay? Parang pwede naman, no? Achievable siya. Considering na nag-start yung business mo from 8 to 5, say for example, or 8 to 10. Kasi yung mall nagsasara ng 10. So, realistic siya kasi achievable yung 20 na milk teas in a day. Okay? Pero naman kung ikaw ay mag-set ng, say for example, 2,000 na okay, na milk teas na dapat may benta for one day, I don't think that is realistic. Okay? Parang imposible na makabenta ka ng 2,000 na milk tea in a day. Okay? So, yes, it is ambitious, but it's not, I don't think it's realistic unless meron ka pang other branches. Okay? Pero kung yan, dyan lang yan sa mall na yan, isa lang yung stall, and ang isa sa mga priority mo is makapagbenta ka ng 2,000 na milk tea in one day, I don't think that's feasible. Okay? So bakit sinasabi dito na to motivate the employees? Dapat daw yung objectives mo or yung aims mo is feasible, pwede, okay? Ambitious siya para makapag-motivate ka ng employees. Kasi for example, okay, objective is makapagbenta ka ng 20 na milk tea. Ay, kaya yon, kaya. Achievable siya, feasible siya. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, si employees, motivate din na gawin yung task na yon. Kasi pwede siya. Pero kung ikaw yung empleyado at ang objectives is ang purpose or ang aim mo is for that day is makabenta ng 2,000, parang hindi naman siya realistic. So, kahit naman ako yung empleyado, parang anong gagawin ko para makapagbenta ako ng 2,000 na milk teas? Okay? So, dapat ganun yung inyong organizational aims. Realistic and challenging. Okay? So, yan. That's organizational aims. Okay. Prioritizing and managing workloads. So, one tool in prioritizing and distributing workload is the Ratchet Chart. Okay? So, it's a tool. Pag sinabi natin class na prioritizing and managing workloads, you delegate the task, you delegate the responsibilities, you assign roles and responsibilities or duties sa inyong staff. Okay? So, meron tayong tool para mas efficient daw or mas maging effective yung delegation ng workloads. Okay? So, ito yung Ratchet Chart. So, a Ratchet Chart is a powerful tool to define roles and responsibilities in a team. Now, in general, roles and responsibilities are matched with the processes or activities. So, depende dun sa activities. Okay, syempre. Okay? So, ano ba yung RATC? RATC stands for R, responsible. Okay? So, ibig sabihin ito, class, dun sa activities na yon, okay, you have to determine sino ba yung responsible sa ganito. Sino ba yung mga gagawa ng ganitong task? Sino ba yung gagawa nitong activities na to? That's responsible. Para doon sa A, accountable. Kasi once you assigned a task or an activity doon sa isang tao, okay, binigay mo yung responsibilidad doon sa tao, binigay mo yung role sa isang tao, siya din yung magiging accountable. Okay? Para pag may failure dyan, okay, siya dapat yung answerable. Okay? That's accountable. And consult. Sino ba ang pwedeng i-consult? Sino ba ang dapat mag-approve ng activities? Sino ba dapat yung mag-sign ng contract? So basically, yan yung project leader or the manager. Okay? Siya yung dapat i-consult. No? And inform. Inform. Pag sinabi natin inform, lahat ng members, okay, lahat ng involved sa isang project, dapat sila ay informed doon sa activities, responsibilities, roles, or duties ng bawat isa. So that's the RATC. It's a tool for prioritizing and distributing workloads. Parang ano lang yan, class? Group project. Okay. Kunwari sa teacher nagpagawa ng isang application program, calculator program, 4 kayo. So since it's a programming activity, so dapat dun sa 4 na yon, sino ba ang magko-code? Okay? So you assign. So ikaw ang magko-code, responsibilidad mo yan. Pag may mali ka dyan, bahala ka dyan, parang ganun. That's accountability then, okay? But since it's a group activity, dapat tulong-tulong. Okay? And then, ano pa ba? So, programmer, sino ba yung magko-code? Sino ba yung sa documentation? Sino ba yung magpe-print ng documents? So, yan. So, you assign, okay, roles, you delegate the task. Okay? That's basically prioritizing and managing workloads. Okay? So, yan. Okay, SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, pag sinabi natin na SWOT stands for S, strength, W for weaknesses, opportunity for O, and threat for T. Now, ginagamit to class yung SWOT analysis, okay, for decision making, okay, and for developing a plan, okay, on how are you going to execute or plan an activity or a project, okay. At para na din maging aware yung mga members or the organizations ng situations or ng kanilang status ng company nila. Okay, yun ang project nila. Okay, so SWOT analysis. So meron ditong example, okay, kung paano ginagawa ang SWOT analysis sa isang, say for example, ikaw ay programmer. Paano mo to gagawin? Paano mo i-apply? Okay? So sabi dito, you are designing a Japanese tutorial platform and you need to know its strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Okay? So parang ikaw ay inutusan daw na gumawa ng isang, mag-design ng isang Japanese tutorial platform. Okay? So, kailangan mo daw i-apply yung SWOT analysis. Paano to gagawin? So, pag sinabi nating strength and weaknesses class, yung strength and weaknesses, ito ay internal sa isang system or sa isang organization. Okay? Pero pag sinabi nating opportunities and threats, ito yung mga beyond your control. Wala kang control dito. Pero pwede mong gawa ng paraan. Okay? Kailangan mo siyang ma-identify para magawa ng paraan. Para ma-resolve mo siya, para magawan mo siya ng solution. Okay? So pag sinabi nating strength, these are positive. Kumbaga advantage to. Okay? So based doon sa analysis mo, okay, na-identify yung strength, okay, nung Japanese tutorial platform na yon. So isa sa mga strength niya is it uses different multimedia elements such as text, videos, and audios. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, nung tiningnan mo yung Japanese tutorial platform, nakita mo, okay, siya ay may text, may videos, and may audios. Kasi there are tutorial na text-based lang siya. Walang videos, walang audio. Okay? So, yun yung strength niya. May multimedia. It uses a multimedia. Okay? Yung kanilang platform. Second is, meron siyang exercises prepared for the student to assess the learning. Okay, okay. Kasi yung parang kung ikaw baga yung user, tapos it's more on theories, concepts, okay, aware ka lang, alam mo yung concept, but para ma-assess mo kung may natutunan ba yung isang learner, okay, dapat meron kang exercises. So, isa yun sa mga strength, okay? Ay, parang magiging challenging to sa isang user kasi malalaman ko kung may natutunan ba ako. So, it's an advantage, no? And students can learn at their own pace. Ibig sabihin, pwede nilang matapos yung activity in 1 day, in 2 days, in 3 days, or in a month. Depende sa availability ng learner. Okay? So, these are the strengths. So, yan yung strength niya. Okay? So, yan. And then, you identify also the weaknesses. Ano ba yung mga weaknesses? There is no mobile app version of this learning platform yet. So, disadvantage yun. Kasi paano kung ang user, yung gadgets niya lang ay mobile phone. So, ibig sabihin, hindi niya pwedeng gamitin yung platform. Hindi niya pwedeng gamitin yung Japanese tutorial platform. Kasi dapat, para maggamit ko siya, kailangan ko gumamit ng laptop. Okay? Kumbaga, yung application is desktop-based siya. Hindi siya mobile-based. Okay? Wala siyang mobile version. So, that is a disadvantage. Bakit pa siya disadvantage? Ibig sabihin, hindi mo makikater lahat ng learners. Ang pwede lang gumamit ng application mo ay yung may mga desktop. So, paano kung yung isang user walang desktop? So, hindi na siya gagamit ng application mo. Okay? So, that's a disadvantage. And then, sabi dito, another weakness is, at the moment, the learning exercises and other assessments are static. Pag sinabi nating static, di ba, sa isang web page, kumbaga yun at yun ang nakikita mo. Okay? Walang changes. Okay, walang kumbaga yun. Later on, parang imagine mo nag-exam ka, meron kang 10 quizzes, yun natin sasagutan mo. So, it kind of be boring, no? So, yan. Isa yun sa mga disadvantage. So, after mong ma-identify yung strength and weaknesses, okay, pwede mong ma-identify yung opportunities. The first one is possible implementation and design for the mobile app version. So, since, okay, wala pa siyang mobile app, why not gumawa tayo ng isang mobile app version nitong Japanese tutorial platform na to para lahat, everyone can use. Okay, makikater natin lahat, okay, ng user. And then, since isa sa mga weaknesses niya is static yung quizzes, why not make it dynamic? Okay? Ibig sabihin, pwedeng mag-add ng teacher, pwedeng mabago yung quizzes, okay? Pwedeng random siya, okay? Para ma-update yung questions. Okay? And a possibility to include other languages. So, aside sa Japanese, pwedeng meron kang French, meron kang German, meron kang Korean, yan. Okay? So, that can be an opportunity. Possible siya. Okay? Pwedeng gawin. Okay? Para mas marami ka pang user na pwedeng, mas marami ka pang learners na pwedeng mainggan yung gumamit ng Japanese tutorial platform. Okay, ano naman yung threats? Yung threats is a disadvantage din. Okay, isa sa mga threats na nakita mo is other Japanese tutorial services which have more features than ours. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, isa to sa mga threats. Ibig sabihin ito, competitors mo. That can be your threat. Okay? Malay mo, may nakagawa na pala ng isang Japanese tutorial platform na mas interactive pa. So, that can be a threat. Isa yun sa mga threat mo. Dapat kailangan mo siyang baguhin yung pwedeng interface ng inyong Japanese tutorial platform para mas, kumbaga, mas maging competitive siya. Okay? And then, consistently emerging technologies that could affect the compatibility of the learning app. So, isa din to sa kailangan mong i-consider na threat. Paano pagdating ng, say for example, next year, hindi na maging compatible yung application mo doon sa technologies na meron. Take note, no? Software, hardware, dapat compatible siya. Aanin mo yung software mo kung hindi na siya compatible sa hardware. So definitely, hindi yan magagamit. Okay? So these are example, or this is an example of how are you going to use the SWOT analysis technique for planning ng inyong isang application or ng isang system. So, in-identify mo yung strength, in-identify mo yung weaknesses, in-identify mo yung opportunities and threats. Ito yung mga gagawin natin. Okay? So, it can help the organization or the persons involved, okay, ng kanilang planning para mas ma-enhance pa yung kanilang Japanese tutorial platform. Okay? Okay, Gantt chart. Pag sinabi natin Gantt chart, it is one of the most famous ways in showing schedule of activities. So basically, you are going to what? Allocate end and start date ng bawat activity. So you have to identify the activities, gaano katagal yung activities, or even the project. So it is commonly used in project management. Okay? Actually, merong mga applications na ng Gantt chart. Okay? Wherein meron pa dun included yung time budget. Okay? Budget allocation ng bawat task. Medyo high-end na tong application. Merong mga ganun. Okay? Ginagamit siya usually ng mga engineers for building design. Okay? So, yan. So, using Gantt charts, it's easier to visualize the timeline through the cascading horizontal bar charts, which represent start date, duration, and end date of each task. So, ano bang makikita sa isang Gantt chart? Yung mga iba't ibang task or activities. Okay? Yung start and end ng activity at nung project, yung duration ng bawat task, at yung overlapping task. Pag sinabi natin overlapping task, ibig sabihin you have to do this task ng sabay. Okay? So ito class ang isang example ng tawag dito, Gantt chart. So you have, sa first column, nandito yung mga activities or task. Okay? So you have here the month. Okay? So, identify mo, kung makita mo dito, kung titingnan natin itong Gantt chart nito, itong matrix na to, or table na to, yung Japanese tutorial platform project ay mag-start ng August 19, mag-end siya ng September 19. So, basically, dapat matapos siya within 2 months. Okay? Okay. So, i-identify mo yung mga activities, okay? And kailangan mong i-allocate or lagyan ng time frame. Say for example, etong first task na to or activities na to ay determine the enhancement to be done. So, kung makita nyo dito, August 19 to 20, ito yung naka-shade na part. So, ibig sabihin, dapat by August 19 to 20, tapos mo tong first task na to or activity na to. Okay? So, lahat ng shaded na yan, ibig sabihin, dyan mo gagawin or dapat yan ang ginagawa for that day, for that days. Okay? So, kung makita nyo dito, yung 1, 2, 3, 4 na activities, naka-shade yung August 19 to 20. Ibig sabihin, overlapping to. Okay? Even actually yung list activities and responsibilities of the member. So, ito ay overlapping. Ibig sabihin, kailangan gawin mo siya ng sabay-sabay. Depende na lang kung sino yung gagawa. Okay? That's basically an example of a Gantt chart. Okay, ano ba yung analysis? Yung analysis is, you have to classify the functions. Actually, part din to. Ito, part lang to ng planning. Okay? So yan, this is an example of a Gantt chart. Ito yung activities. Activities for planning, activities for analysis. Ito yung mga task. Okay? So that's the Gantt chart. Basically, nilagyan mo ng time frame lahat ng task or activities. Okay? Yan. Okay, consultation and negotiation with stakeholders. So after ng planning, okay, kailangan mong i-disseminate or kailangan mong i-relay yung information or yung plan. So ibig sabihin, you have to consult your stakeholders, or pag hindi nag-agree doon yung mga stakeholders, kailangan mong makipag-negotiate. Okay, para to come up with a good decision, a good agreement. Okay? So ano bang tinatawag nating stakeholders? Pag sinabi nating stakeholders, this refer to an individual or group or organization that could affect or be affected by a company's action, decision, or policies and objectives. So lahat ng members na affected doon sa project, sa decision, sa policies, or sa objectives. Okay? So, meron tayong dalawang uri ng stakeholders. Okay? So, the first one is the internal. Example doon sa ating Japanese tutorial platform. Sino ba yung mga internal na stakeholders? Okay. These are, or they are, the project advisor, yung project leader, yung programmer, and other staff. Sila yung within, kaya nga internal. Sila yung mga stakeholders, internal stakeholders within the organization. Okay? Ano ba yung kailangan nilang gawin? Ano yung impact nila? Okay? So, what they're going to do is, they have to collaborate, cooperate, communicate, para ma-achieve nila yung output, which is to what? To come up with a good or efficient Japanese tutorial platform. A good Japanese tutorial platform. Okay? So, sila naman, sabi nga dito, the project will greatly affect the end results of the project. Okay? So, sila yung internal. However, pag sinabi natin external stakeholders, eto naman yung mga outsiders. Okay? Sila yung kaya nga external. Okay? Hindi sila, kumbaga hindi sila, kumbaga, outside the organization or the project. Okay? So, the first one is consultant. Okay? Another example of external stakeholders ay yung users, customers. Ayan, stakeholders sila. So, ano naman ang ginagawa nila? They can provide what? Comments, suggestions, okay? For product modifications. Okay? Parang ano lang yan, class. May nagpagawa sa inyo ng system or application. Nung natapos mo yung system, kailangan mo siyang ipa-check, ipa-evaluate doon sa customer mo or sa user. To check kung nasatisfy ba or nagawa ba yung system requirements. So, yan. Okay? Kung hindi, kailangan i-modify. Okay? Kung okay naman, so, kailangan na siyang accept or reject the product of the project. And then they have to sign the user's acceptance sign-off form. Ibig sabihin, they agree na okay na yung kanilang pinapagawang system or application. Okay? And also, personal matters with the family of the project team leader and members might delay meetings affecting the whole project schedule. So, sila rin yung external stakeholders. Okay? Parang hindi nagagawa ni programmer yung kanyang task because may mga personal matters siyang inaayos. Okay? That's actually external stakeholders example. Okay? So, consultation and negotiation with stakeholders. Okay, work plans. Okay? Now, in carrying out the work plans, it is always important to review the scope of the project. Ano ba yung, hanggang saan ba? Okay? Hanggang, ano ba yung, kaya nga scope, ano ba yung, hanggang saan ba yung project? Ano ba yung mga limitations ng project? Okay? So, considering daw dun sa example na kailangan nung mag-develop ng Japanese tutorial platform, ito daw yung scope or ito yung mga deliverables or ito yung expected na output. So, syempre, kailangan mo yung installer. Syempre, paano mo naman gagamitin yung application kung wala? Okay? And then, yung user manual. Okay? Documentation and a proofread statement. So, these are examples. These are the expected output or result doon sa Japanese tutorial platform. So, ito yung kailangang gawin, pagtuon ng pansin ng programmers or ng members ng project na to. Okay, so that's the work plans, no? Okay. So in implementing and monitoring the the plan, okay? So sabi dito, during the implementations of plans and activities, monitoring its progress is needed to know the status of the project. So hindi pwedeng hinayaan mo lang yung tao mo na gawin yung mga task nila. Kailangan mong i-monitor kung within the schedule ba yung task. Otherwise, magkakaroon ka ng backlogs. So, importante yung monitoring para you have an idea kung may backlogs ba, ano ba yung status ng project, or within time frame ba siya. So, meron ditong figure. So, ito yung mga activities based doon sa ating Gantt chart. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, by August, nung August, 25% etong task na to. So, hindi pa siya tapos. Okay? Pero pagdating ng September, 100%. Ibig sabihin, tapos na tong task na to. Okay? So, yan. That's basically how you monitor the task or the activity ng isang project or ng isang plan. Okay? Or ng isang activity or ng isang task. Okay? So, importante yung monitoring ng activities. Okay? Or implementation ng mga activities or plans. Okay? So, paano nyo naman i-measure yung reporting? Okay? So, we have reporting performance. Now, in reporting the progress and status of the project, you have to collect and disseminate performance information. Okay? Kasi kaya baga importante na, kaya baga palaging nagpapasubmit ng progress report, weekly report, to check kung nagagawa ba, okay? Kung to check the status of the project or status of the activities or of the plan. So basically, meron kang input, meron kang output doon sa reporting performance to check, no? Kung okay ba o hindi. Ano bang example ng mga input? The project management plan. So yung plan itself. Okay? Work performance information. Okay? Ano ba yung mga ginagawa nitong mga empleyado na to? Okay? Are they performing well or hindi? Okay? Work performance measurement, budget forecast, organizational process assets. These are examples of input doon sa report. Okay? Ngayon, ano yung expected na output para masabi na okay yung performance based doon sa report? The first one is performance report. So based to doon sa pwedeng project management plan, pwedeng sa work performance information, or sa work performance measurement. Okay? Or pwedeng ang output naman is organizational process assets updates doon sa input na organizational process assets. Or if there are change in request. So these are examples of um, reporting performance. So you have the input, you have the output, expected output. Kasi parang hindi naman pwede na i-measure mo na okay yung kanyang performance kung wala kang input na nade-determine. Siyempre, i-evaluate mo yung kanyang performance based doon sa kanyang input. Okay? So, yan. Okay? Okay, setting schedules. So, aside sa Gantt chart, okay, meron pang isang tool to measure, okay, the implementation of a plan. Okay? At ang tawag dito ay yung milestone. Okay? A milestone, pag sinabi natin milestone, a milestone refers to an important event during the implementation of the plan and is used to check the progress of the project. So that's a milestone. Example, realistic tong example class. At 15, I set my heart upon learning. Ibig sabihin, you are fully aware or decided ka na dapat by this time, okay, focus na ako sa learning ko. At 30, I established myself. It's a milestone. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng I established myself? Ibig sabihin, you are financially independent, you have your car, you have your house, you have a stable job. Okay? At 30, at the age of 30. Okay? At 40, I am no longer confused. Ibig sabihin, alam mo na kung ano gusto mo sa buhay. It's a milestone. These are examples, realistic examples, no? So, paano naman sa isang organization or sa isang institution? Okay. Sabi dito, a project event marked with milestones are if a project phase is completed, natapos siya, a deliverable is approved, ibig sabihin yung installer mo ay na-approve, yung user manual mo is approved. A scheduled interview is completed, an activity is accomplished, or an activity is commenced. Okay? Ibig sabihin, nag-start na yung activity. So, ano ba yung example nito? Okay? So, ito yung mga examples class. Naayos mo yung bugs ng inyong software. Natapos mo yung software module. Na-compile mo yung application or yung program completed ng maayos, ng walang errors. Natapos mo yung documentation. These are examples of a milestone. Okay? So, yan yung importansya ng setting schedules para malaman mo kung okay ba, natapos ba o hindi, na-approve ba o hindi. That's a milestone. So, aside sa Gantt chart, meron kang milestone. Okay. Report writing. So, a report is written in a well-structured and organized document which provides a specific and relevant information to a particular issue or problem. So sabi nga dito class, it is a well-structured and organized document. So from the definition ng report, no? Written siya. Okay. So ibig sabihin, meron kang guidelines to follow. You have to follow a format. Okay? So ano ba yung mga yon? Okay? So you have the title page, the terms of reference, your summary, table of contents, introduction, methods, result, discussion, conclusion, appendices, bibliography, and acknowledgement. These are, okay, kumbaga yung structure, ito yung format. This is the format ng isang written report. Now, different organizations, different departments, meron silang format ng kanilang report. But this is actually generic. Generic siya. So you can follow it kung wala pang format yung isang organization. Okay? So yan. Okay, paano naman mag-collect ng information? Now, we have ways to collect information, and this is through interviews, surveys, observation, or review of literature. Bakit kailangan natin mag-collect ng information? We need to get information to evaluate and assess the plans and activities. Kung may improvement ba or kung okay ba siya o hindi. Okay? So, information gathered refers to a feedback. This is to what? Comments, suggestions, recommendations on how well a plan or activity is performing. Okay? So paano ba ano ba yung mga ways to gather information? Pwedeng through email, contact forms sa customers, surveys, usability tests, exploratory customer interviews, social listening through social media or comment boxes. That's how we gather information or we gather a feedback, comments, or suggestion. Okay? So, importante to for evaluation and assessment ng inyong activities or ng inyong plans. Okay? So, yan. Okay, so we also have feedback and performance appraisal. So, feedback, sabi ko nga, is a comment or suggestion. So, sabi nga dito, feedback is the information sent to an individual or group about its conduct or performance so that the persons may change its current and future conduct to achieve the desired outcome. Okay? Malay mo, iba naman pala yung nakikita ng ibang tao dun sa performance mo. So, kailangan mo yung feedback. Kung mali o tama yung inyong ginagawa. So, importante yung feedback. Yung performance appraisal naman is a systematic evaluation of an individual or employee with regard to the performance on the job and possible development. So, importante ito class na performance appraisal. Why? Because ginagamit siya for promotion ng isang empleyado kung okay yung kanyang performance. Okay? Kung hindi naman, pwede kang i-retrain, i-retool, or pwedeng i-terminate. Okay? So, that's basically, that's why importante yung performance appraisal. Okay? And that can be included doon sa planning and organizing ng isang work, ng isang activity, or ng isang plan. That's why importante yung feedback and performance appraisal. Okay? So, I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone. So, that's the lesson for planning and organizing work. Okay? For week 3.